So here we are, February 24th, 2015, Tuesday, and it looks like we have solved one of our problems. Actually solved a couple of our problems relatively easy today. So we were sitting here, and one of my wife's friends had come over, and we were talking about this whole thing about what to do with the house. And lo and behold, this person was just about to sign a lease on an apartment of their own. And we said, hell, if you stay here and basically house sit for a year, you get the whole house and all you have to pay is the utility bills. And everybody said, that sounds like a winning idea. Because that's what we're worried. I mean, we're not overly worried about leaving the house empty. Again, I'm not particularly a worrier to begin with, and then two, just where our house is located, it's kind of in the outskirts of anywhere. This is not some place that most people would know would normally exist. Plus, we have very diligent neighbors. I swear our neighbors act like a bunch of old ladies half the time, calling police on people. So I'm not particularly worried about leaving this place empty, but if we don't have to leave it empty, that's just a good thing all the way around. So we were talking with them, and we were like, yeah, we're probably going to be leaving the house empty for a year anyway. So if you pay the utility bills, then that means the house is being lived in, which is good for a house. It means if there's any problems here, there's somebody here. It means you can send us the mail. So when the mail comes in, all we ask you to do is you pick it up and ship it off to us every once in a while. So it's good all the way around. And this is one of my wife's friends from acupuncture school, and they are starting their own acupuncture business, or have already started their own acupuncture business, but they're still in the beginning stages of it. So it's good for them because it doesn't cost them a lot of money. Again, the utility bills for this big old place may be large, but they're not as large as a rent payment. You know what I'm saying? So very happy about that. Very happy about that. Our house will be lived in. We don't have to pay the utility bills, because even if we left for a year, we'd still have to pay some utility bills. So that takes some money off the table that we have to pay. It's good all the way around. Now, some people have been asking, why don't we rent the house out, or why don't we sell the house? And the issue you get into is with things like that, people always say, well, it's so easy, right? You should just rent the house out. Should just. The problem is, if we rent the house out, because we're still trying to figure out exactly what we want to do in life. We know we want to do the RV, and we want to know we want to do it for a year, but what happens after that, we're not quite sure. And so the issue is like if we rented the house, even if we just rented the house out, we have to deal with things like where to put our stuff. So we have stuff to fit in a big house like that, so we would have to move all of that stuff out. Not only that, but we'd actually have to rent the house out. Now, a house as large as ours doesn't get rented in the way most people's houses get rented. So, if you're renting out some ranch or house somewhere, you just put it on Craigslist or get a property manager. They put it out there. You get a year lease, and away you go. With houses of our size and caliber, you go for a different clientele that can take a little longer to get because the price is a hell of a lot higher. And then they also sign long leases. So our neighbor, to that side, they leased their house out before they sold it, and literally the lease offers they were getting in were for 3 years. So they had competing 3-year lease offers, because the thing is when people move into houses of this size, they don't want to be moving in a year, right? If you move into like some little 1,200 square foot rancher, 1,500 square foot rancher, it's not that big a deal to move in and out in a year. When you're going into something that has 3,600 square feet just of usable space, not including all that open area, it's a pain in the ass to move in and out. And so that's what we're running into, everybody, you always think about the money, like, well, you could get rent money, but you don't think about all these other things. It's like, yeah, well, if we did rent it out, we probably couldn't rent it out. One, it would be a pain in the ass to do. And then even if we did, people would want it for 3 years. That's a bigger step than 1 year. 1 year, we may come back early, is a little easier to swallow than 3 years, because 3 years we're totally gone and done. And then again, as far as selling it, we were thinking about that, but then again, there's a lot of stuff that goes into that, as if we did sell it, blah, 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 blah. So we like this all the way around. We like this. We get to keep the house for a little longer. Hopefully the value goes up a bit. And we go. Again, we had planned to have this house for like 20 years, to be honest with you. It's like when we bought this house, the idea is we're going to come here, we're going to have kids, we're going to send these kids through school, and this was going to be the, that middle-aged house, as they say. And, well, life Life had other plans. Life had other plans. So, with us looking at it, without having kids and all that kind of thing, with kids basically being off the table, frankly, the house is just too large. There's a lot of people that have said, I've got a lot of like snarky comments, especially in my other channels, like, oh, if you're not happy with the house, you won't be happy anywhere. You're like, dude, this house is just too damn big. I mean, I don't, it's so hard like dealing with people sometimes because it's like, I think a lot of people don't understand. It's like what looks amazing from the outside, like when you look at it from the outside, it's like, oh, that's amazing. But it's like when you actually own it, it's an entirely different story. You've got 3 acres of land that you have to deal with. You have a house. I mean, you know, it's just so big. Like all these things you have to deal with. The utility bills alone. I mean, our utility bill for last month was $800. Not even joking, right? So again, like I say, I mean, you can write the check for it, and I wouldn't mind writing the check for it. If we had kids, like I say, if we had 2 kids and 2 dogs and all of that, yes, this would be a very affluent house. But it's one of those things where, yes, it would still be a large house, but it would be a well-used large house. Whereas right now, with me and my wife toddling along, and we got 5 bedrooms, 2 baths, 2 half baths, plus the outbuilding, plus a 2-car garage, plus the entire basement. For 2 of us. I mean, like I said, my quote-unquote office space, I mean, takes up half a floor and then another bedroom, simply because what the hell else are we going to do with the space, right? Just like, oh my God, there's so much space. And so that's why we're looking at this, and that's why I complain about it a little bit, is just because, like I say, is we bought it with how we thought life was originally going to go, and then life kind of took a shot to the left real quick, and now we're left with the results. And so that's where, again, it's hard to talk with people about these life changes because everybody wants to put it in the context of their own life, right? They look at things from the outside, and then they start dumping all of their stories. They start dumping all of their viewpoints, whatever the hell's going on in their mind, onto you. And that's what makes it difficult to talk with a lot of people, because it's like, things have changed. We bought this place over 4.5 years ago. We were looking for a place 5 years ago. And so, the world changed. In 5 years, your perspective of the world changes, and what you need and want out of life changes. And that's kind of, that's just kind of how it goes. But the issue is, a lot of times, is you try to talk with people, and all they can see is whatever story is playing behind their own eyeballs. If I was in your position, this is what I would do. If I had what you had, this is what I would do. And you just look at them, it's like, I don't know what to tell you. I mean, I understand what you would do, but that's not me. That's not what we want, right? So what are you gonna do? What are you gonna do? So we're gonna sit on this house. So we'll have this person, and they'll be doing house sitting for about a year, maybe more. The big thing we're looking at too with this place is, unfortunately, since it's a pretty expensive house, in order to get a loan for this house, you have to get something called a jumbo loan. So there are normal loans, the federal housing, that are insured by the FHA, right? So basically, the loan is insured. So if the person leaves, the bank can use the insurance to make sure they get their money back, right? Once you get into what are called jumbo loans, houses that are more expensive than that amount of money, somewhere around $450,000, $500,000, you get in these jumbo loans, and they're not insured. And so the problem is in the current economic market, it's very hard to get those loans. So even if the house is good, even if the bank looks at it and says, yes, the sales price is good, the question they have to ask themselves is, do they want the risk of owning this thing, right? And so a lot of times the answer is no. So I know a lot of people right now that are kind of screwed, where they have these larger houses where in order to buy them, people need to get jumbo loans, and the bank simply will not give the jumbo loans. It's not about the credit worthiness. It's not about the quality or the price of the house. It's just the bank is very, very, very risk adverse. So since we're still rather close to the recession, my thought is the farther we get out, the more likely it is that we'll be able to get more of our money back, and hopefully maybe make a tiny bit of profit with as much work as we've been getting into it, right? And so that's one of those things you have to think about with business. Is, again, a lot of people don't think about that with business, how all of these things play together. It's not about the price or value simply of the house. It's not about how much money the potential buyer makes and how much money the potential buyer has in the bank. It is also things like, is the bank or are any banks willing to take the risk? When we bought this place, one of the reasons we were able to get it at the price we were able to get it, which was a lot less, was simply because we were one of the few people to actually be able to get a mortgage at the time. Right? I mean, that's nice, right? All these people are selling houses, and when you're the only people that actually have the money for the mortgage, you're like, oh, no, we have paperwork for a mortgage. And they're like, oh my golly, right? So that's the kind of thing that you have to think about with all this. So our hope, like I said, or my hope is we put off selling it for a year or two. That should get us away from the recession. Hopefully the banks are a little more risk tolerant at that point. People can get a little higher mortgages. Then we can sell this thing and go. Because we've been looking at places. I've been looking at places, and especially at the range that we can afford. There are a lot of nice places in the world. They're small, but they're nice. I was looking at this place in San Diego. It's like this 1,000 square foot house on the ocean for like $2,900 a month. And I was like, okay. Yes, it might be a fucking tiny house, but it's in San Diego on the ocean, right? That sounds good to me. So yeah, that is what we're looking at. And that's the other thing to be thinking about with yourself. And, as you go along and hopefully get more successful in life is, what is really valuable. There are these tiny little houses in certain areas that are very expensive, or you can get a really huge house that's very inexpensive. But the thing is, what is actually valuable to you? For us, we thought coming out here, getting this large house and all that, we honestly believe this was going to be a great thing. We honestly thought it was going to be we were going to be really happy and be here for 20 years. But then what we found out is just we don't have the mentality to deal with this stuff. And that's one of the things, we don't talk about enough in life is, what's important to you. And so for me and my wife, it sounds arrogant or egotistical to say, but we really don't care about what other people think. Like, we really, truly don't give a damn what other people think. And so that's a thing. So like doing the whole like keeping up appearances really isn't valuable to us. So there's a lot of people, like I say, there's a lot of people we know around here. You get the fancy car, you get the fancy house, and then the whole idea is you tell the world, ha ha, look at how cool I am. And it's like, I don't care. You don't need, obviously because I do these videos, you've seen my house a bit, but honestly, from me, I don't care if you see my house. I don't care what you think about my material possessions. Honestly, to the core of my being, what I find valuable about myself is my experiences. What I find valuable about myself is myself, right? I don't find this stuff valuable. And so that's why it drives me out of my damn mind, because I guess that's, I know a lot of people and they really care about the wood. They want a very specific hardwood floor and they want very specific paint and they want very specific, and it all has to be perfect. And they're willing to go through so much crap. And it's like, I don't care. It's like, ooh, that's a pretty wood floor. I want the pretty wood floor. It was like my wife and I, when we got married, we actually got a wedding planner. And so the wedding planner sat down with us and, we were explaining, she was asking us what we wanted. And she said, okay, so coming to food, what kind of food would you guys like? And I looked at her straight in the eyes and said, good food. She was like, what? I went, I would prefer the food to be good. She said, what does that mean? I was like, I want it to taste good. She's not, yeah, but do you want chicken or shrimp or lobster, or I don't care. I want it to be good. She was like, okay, I have my marching orders. And here's the thing, I'm going to tell you, boys and girls, that was an awesome answer to give because she got us good food. She didn't get us lobster or steak or anything. She just got us good food. It was like, you ate that food, you're like, damn, this food is good. And people were like, I would have never thought having this food at a wedding. And they went, that's because I said I want good food, right? Because we have a lot of buddies. We have a lot of friends. They get married and you go and you eat their wedding food. And it's very specific. It's like steak and lobster. But it's really bad steak and really bad lobster. So they can say, well, we served everybody steak and lobster. And you're like, yeah, but it was all crap. That was like the worst steak and lobster I've ever had in my life. right? Whereas if for us, we were just like, we want it to be good food. It was like cornbread. Oh, it's just some good stuff. Oh, it was like home cooked. It was Virginia home cooking. Ah, that was amazing. But but yeah, that's what we want out of life. We just want good. We want stuff. We want what we can afford, and obviously we're probably gonna have a nice place. But that's what we're learning. It's just, they say, this huge thing, having the size and all that. It's just not. Yeah, it's hard to say. It's hard to say until you've been here, but you're like, wow, this is just way too much. But anyways, that is the tale for today. Very happy that we found our house sitter, and a good, and like I tell a lot of people, this is where conversations are very good, where you can find like people who are willing to do the things you need to do simply by having these conversations. We hadn't planned to ask this person to house sit or any of that. It was just kind of like one conversation led into this, led into that, led into, hey, when are you moving in? Oh, beyond that, how's it going for the whole RV trip? So we're pretty solid on leaving for the 15th now, especially since we do have somebody to take over the house. Let's see, I went out, I got the appointment for the dentist. I do hate the dentist. I only go to the dentist like every 2 or 3 years, but I figure if we're going out for a year, I one, I don't like dentists, and at least the dentist I have I trust. So I figure I'll go for my checkup now. So I think I have the dentist appointment next Tuesday. So we pick up the RV or the trailer on Monday. Then I go to the dentist Tuesday. The other thing we had to worry about was mail, how we're going to handle mail while we were gone. So that has been handled. The house has now been handled. As far as Tanto is concerned, I don't know what the hell is going on with Tanto. Oh my golly, that is just a damn roller coaster as far as Tanto is concerned. So he only ate about half of his food on Saturday. And so we were told basically when the dog stops eating, that's when you're on the downhill slide. So he only ate his half of his food on Saturday. We're like, oh no. And then so Sunday, he really didn't eat anything until like in midday, one of my wife's friends got him to eat something. So basically what we decided is when he stops eating, we'll put him down, because once he stops eating, I mean, there's just no real recovery from that. It's all downhill. So he didn't eat, so he barely ate anything. He only ate half as much as he normally does on Saturday. And then on Sunday, he ate like a quarter what he normally does. And then, so we were thinking, like, if he didn't eat anything on Sunday, maybe we'd have to put him down Monday. But then, so he ate something on Sunday. So it's like, okay, he's still eating. He may not be eating a lot, but he's eating, right? So then we go into Monday, and then he ate like a can of food. So almost an entire can of food. Now, for a dog, for his size, he's supposed to eat 2.5 cans of that food per day. So again, not as much food as he should have, but he's eating. So as long as he's eating, we're gonna let him truck around. And he keeps, like, he walks and his little tail is moving, and so he's a little sluggish, but he seems pretty like himself. So we brought him to the vet today. And the vet basically said that this actually, for him not eating, actually doesn't sound like the cancer causing the problem, but maybe the new meds they put him on. So it was one of those things where he says the medications they put him on, for 99.9999% of the people, it makes them more hungry and more hyper. And for like 0.01% of the people, it like kills your appetite for days at a time. So literally, by just giving him one pill, it may be enough to screw up his appetite for like 3 days. And so he was looking at him, and he was looking at Tanto move around, and he was like, that doesn't look like cancer not causing him to eat. It looks like something else. So we're like, oh, okay, well, interesting. And so this is a vet that we like. So there's the office that we go to. There's multiple vets there. They're all good vets, but there's just, you know how there is with everything in business. There's like the one guy that you actually that you truly respect, and then the other people you'll deal with. And this is the one we truly respect. So it's like, okay, so if this doesn't look like, he's gonna, if the cancer, he's on the downhill slide. Hopefully, if we keep him off the meds, he'll start eating again. Then how long do you think he'll be around? And this is where it's like, oh my God, like the roller coaster of emotions with your poor little dog. And so he was talking about it, and he said, well, with this kind of cancer, it normally spreads, and so it spreads to the lungs, sometimes to the blood vessels, but generally to the lungs. But that's how it normally spreads. And we're like, okay, well, what does that mean? And he said, well, when normally the dogs get the cancer, it's actually larger breed dogs, and they normally get it in their appendages, so in their legs, right? So somehow it goes from their legs into their lungs. And so he said, since this is actually on Tanto's skull, he's not sure how it will end up presenting itself. And we're like, what the hell does that mean? And he said, well, it's kind of one of those, whenever we talk about these types of cancers or problems, we always talk about the standard way that it happens. But this isn't the standard way. And so when it's not standard, it can go differently. And I was like, well, what does that mean? Because I have heard that bone cancer can be a really painful death. And he said, well, one of the reasons it can be a really painful death is because, let's see here, reject. Somebody's trying to call in. Anyways, and so one of the reasons it can be really painful is because if the cancer is in the appendage, if the cancer is in the legs, what it does is it starts degrading the leg. And so what'll happen is when the dog steps, it'll start to get painful to the point it will just, at one point, it will just shatter. Like literally, simply by the dog putting the leg down, it will just be so weak it'll shatter. And that's why it's so horrible and painful. And so he said, and that's a weird thing. So since the cancer is on his skull, the skull doesn't really take any stress. I mean, I guess unless you like bop him in it, right? And so things may go differently. And we're like, okay, well, what does that mean? It's like, well, it hasn't been unknown for the cancer to outlive the dog. And you're like, well, what the hell does that one mean? And apparently, again, with however these cancers happen, is that sometimes with how the cancers end up presenting themselves, is the cancer is eating away at what it's eating away at, but at the end of the day, the dog is able to live long enough that they end up dying of something else. So it's kind of like, yes, the dog has bone cancer, but then it dies of a heart attack or who the hell knows what, eating rabbit crap or something, right? And so we're like, okay, so what does that actually mean for this? And he was just like, So basically, he has just told us to keep feeding Tanto and to see what happens. He did reiterate that the way Tanto will probably die if this does spread is that it will probably go to his lungs. Apparently, when it does go to the lungs, it starts to slowly degrade how well you can breathe. But he said there, too, one of the interesting things is apparently with only 10% of lung capacity, you can still, or a dog can still get around okay. Like, it's not like happy, bouncy, like running for the stick, but that can actually still have a happy life. So what he was saying is that, like, for most of the dogs, the lungs degrade so slowly. Again, it's not like this horrible, nasty process. It's just every day they get a little more tired until, sadly, you get to the point they kind of curl up in a ball and then don't want to come out of it. So that's with Tanto. So one minute, we think we're going to have Tanto for 8 years. The next minute, we think we're going to have him for 4 to 6 months. The next minute, we think we're going to have to put him down tomorrow. And now we don't have a damn clue. We don't have a damn clue. So today I went out and I bought like Tanto all these different treats. So we have like, if you look at Tanto's food bowl now, there's actually like 4 different plates of food. And there's like, here is the beef snack, and here is the rabbit snack, and here is the normal kibble, and here is the wet food. So whatever food you would like, Tanto. Because again, all the vet said, like, if he will eat ice cream, feed him ice cream. It doesn't matter. Just feed him whatever the hell he will eat. So it is all there. And I was feeding him earlier this afternoon, and we got this really like high calorie like beef snacks. And I swear he ate like 1,000 calories of that stuff. So I don't really know how many calories a dog is supposed to get in a day, but I figure 1,000 calories should be pretty good. So there we go with this trip. It looks right at this second that Tanto may actually be going with us. But as you guys have seen, who the hell knows? Anyways, it is very cold out here, and it is obviously getting dark. So we will call it a day. We will see you guys tomorrow. But we are on track. We are on track. And my wife is very, she wants to go. She's like, we're leaving on the 15th. I'm like, okay, dear. We will leave on the 15th.